Join us as we cross Canada to celebrate innovative nations leading the way in community planning. Coast to coast, we will explore the 7 C's of community planning: culture and languages, community-driven, nation-based, community engagement, communication, collaboration, connection, and commitment. Our first stop is Haida. Here, we take a closer look at the first C of community planning: culture and languages. Culture and languages are the foundation of our identity.
Leading up to 2012, I'd been working on a new curriculum within the master's program at UBC in Community and Regional Planning. We put out calls for interest for nations to sponsor our first 2 pairs of students. The Skidegate Haida were one of the first 2 nations who stepped up. So we began a partnership that involved a year of doing visioning work with the community. When Dana was hired during that year, 2012-13, as the community planner, she worked with our 2 students. And it was at the end of that year that I came up to Haida to witness the students presenting the results of the visioning work. And out of that visioning process came the top 3 priorities for the Skidegate Haida community as they move forward. For the first of those was language revitalization. The second was protecting the lands and waters of Haida. And the third was inventing some kind of economic development that was both environmentally friendly and would keep youth on Haida. So during our first meeting, Dana and I and the Chief Administrative Officer, Bab Stevens, we were talking about a documentary that I'd made about 2 small First Nations in northern BC. And Dana and Babs expressed an interest in having a film made about the Haida. And we just started to kick that around. And before I knew it, I was meeting with the chief and talking about what all this would involve, who would own it, what would it be about. I said it would be owned by the community, it would be about whatever the community wanted it to be about.
The community said, who are we as Haidas if we don't have our language and culture? This needs to be a priority. And less than 1% of our people speak our language. And of that 1% of the people, those are elders who are between the ages of 75 and 90 years old. And so we only have a handful of fluent speakers left, both in the north, in Masset, and down here in Skidegate. So it was really important to the community that we do everything that we could to revitalize our language. Part of that work in community planning was having Haida taught in our schools equally as French. And so we were also working at the same time with some students who were going to school to get their teaching certificate or their Haida language development term certificate. And they do play a part later on in the making of the film and as actors as well. So that was one priority, because we say when the tide is out, the table is set, and we're deeply connected to our territory. And so we wanted to make sure that we're protecting our land and waters. So that was a major priority. Also, Haida is one of the most beautiful places in the world, and many people come here to film, but rarely do they include Haidas in the production of the film. And so we wanted to make sure we could offer that here on Haida, that we could teach our people how to put a film together, how to write a script, how to operate cameras and sound equipment, how to do the editing. So it was really important to start that green economy here on Haida.
I think it's important to remember that at this time, during the first decade of this century, a group of First Nations within BC started a whole new planning process that's now known as comprehensive community planning, that's community-led and land-based.
So the community loved the process and methodology of coming together to talk. It's basically an old way of planning that we've been doing forever. And so using those same principles in community planning, we rolled out the idea of making the film. One of the most important things about community planning is about mentorship and building capacity within community. communities can do everything themselves. They just need mentorship. That's what we do as Indigenous people, is we mentor the youth, the up-and-coming people in our community to be our leaders.
And I guess that was my role in the writing process, was that I worked with the three lads who had won the writing contest, and we worked together over 6 months to develop the script.
I think the purpose of the film, the intent of the film from the beginning, was to create a language resource that could be taught in the schools. We had an app that was created so that the actors could learn their language, and this app was also online so that other people could learn the language, could learn about the script and the story. We wanted our people to be proud of construction people, like set builders. It took wardrobe people, it took weavers, it took carvers. We had everybody helping us, people food gathering for us and people cooking for us. It was a really amazing experience.
I think in the most obvious, tangible, short-term thing was that $800,000 worth of wages came into the community with all of the community people who were hired on the project, as Dana has just mentioned, from caterers to drivers to weavers and so on. So there was that initial influx of money. From the conception of the project, one of our aims was to showcase the health and the vibrancy of the Haida way of life pre-contact.
I think it's about connections. So to make this film, it took a lot of people to come together over quite a few years. Like, it took over 2 years to make the film. Even on set, we lived together, we ate together, we slept in tents together, and we worked together long days. So we became really good friends, and I would say family. So once you make those connections, they never go away.
It was a 5-year process, and during that process, a lot of new connections were made. A lot of old connections that had been broken were repaired, and that's all part of community building. So, for me, as a community planner and as a filmmaker, the realization of the power of film to achieve community development goals was, I think, a huge joy.